Hello everybody, Peter here, and today I'm going to be starting my brand new series where I'm going to be ranking each episode of My Little Pony all the way from Season 1 all the way up to Season 9. And the way we're going to be doing this is a simple ranking tier list. It's S tier all the way down to F tier and everything in between. Now the way that it's going to work is that I'm going to divide every season into two parts with the exception of Season 3. And for season openers and season finales, I'm going to rank those as one single episode just to make everything, a little bit smoother and to make the video short. Because as it is, this episode, I think it's already like 23 episodes long, 23 minutes long. But yeah, that's the basic rules I'm going to be applying. Everything else, any feedback you might have, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know what you would rank these episodes. What's an S tier episode for you guys from this list. Anyways, let's get right into the video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know everything in the comments, and I'll see you guys later. Take care, my dudes. Alright, just finished watching episode 1 and 2 of the first season, and oh my goodness, there are a lot of little things that I didn't remember, but oh my goodness, has this series changed so much from season 1 all the way up to season 9. But anyways, let's quickly rank this episode. Now, where would I put these first two episodes on the tier list? It's hard, to be honest. It's really hard to rank these. I think they are definitely a strong A because this is obviously where the series started. It's where we got the foundation for what the story, the premise of Friendship is Magic was going to be. It's where we got introduced to the main six, to Spike, to the princesses. We got a little bit of how Equestria sort of is, what works, what doesn't work in there. It's really interesting, these episodes hold a special place in my heart because obviously this is where it all started. This is where we all fell in love with these characters. I think these episodes get a strong A. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It might change in the future, but for now I'm feeling a strong A. It's a good episode. It's a good way to kick off not only the season, but a good way to kick off this whole series. So yeah, an A. The Ticketmaster. Alright, I think as far as plots go for episodes, this was a really basic premise. You got Twilight not knowing who to give one of the Grand Galloping Gala tickets to, and they eventually, end up with one for every single pony. It really shows how basic the series was probably meant to be. There wasn't any big fights going on every episode. There wasn't anybody breaking down mentally. It wasn't a matter of national security every single episode. Sometimes it was just a basic plot of not knowing who you're going to take with you to this party, and then, eventually finding a way to take everybody, It's really basic. It's really nice to, now that I'm going back and watching all of this, to just sort of have these sort of laid back episodes where there's nothing really that grave going on, where, the most basic problem is, oh, I don't know who I'm taking with me. So yeah, it's really nice to just go back, relax, Equestria isn't at risk, Ponyville isn't at risk, whoever is the protagonist of the episode's mentality. Well, I guess that it was kind of at risk for Twilight, but, nothing serious or like later episodes, just a nice chill back episode. But then again, the fact that it's a basic premise isn't a bad thing, but it isn't a good thing. If I had to rate this episode, I would definitely rate it a strong C. It does what it does, but it's not anything special. It's just, a basic plot for what everybody at the time thought was just going to be another basic My Little Pony generation to sell toys. So yeah, it definitely gets a strong C in my opinion. Alright, Applebuck Season. This was actually quite an enjoyable episode. This was our first Applejack episode, or Applejack-centric episode. It's where we really got to know a little bit more of her personality, how she is really stubborn at times, how she doesn't accept help really easily, and something that, obviously remained up into even more recent Applejack episodes. It really laid down the foundation of how her attitude is. I really enjoyed it. This was actually one of my favorite episodes back in the day because, I guess this is where my bias shows a little bit towards some of these episodes. Applejack has always been one of my favorite characters, and this episode back in the day really cemented it for me. Like, she was, I think, the second brushable I ever bought as far as like pony figures. She was the second one I bought, and this episode was really enjoyable. One thing I did notice about this episode is just how different every pony's voices are. I mean, Now that I go back and think about it, in the other episodes they were really different as well, but this one just stood out mainly because I believe out of all the characters, the one that changed the most was actually like Rainbow Dash and Applejack, but I think Applejack changed the most, so it was really noticeable in this episode. But it's still not that bad. You can still tell it's her. It just sounds a little bit more like higher pitched or more girly, if I would say. But overall, the message in this, pretty basic message for this episode. Don't be stubborn, learn to accept help, let your friends help you out, and all that. It was a really enjoyable episode. One that I think even like back when season 4 was out, I actually went back and watched a lot. So this episode, if I had to say, because now with season 9, all the other seasons, I have different favorite Applejack episodes. This one's sort of been pushed back. If I had to rank this one, I think I would rank it in a B. I think it's a strong B. It's a really good episode, but I don't know. It gets a strong B for the fact that there are better Applejack episodes after this one. Episode 5, Griffin the Brush-Off. Alright, this was actually a good episode. We got introduced, obviously, to Gilda the Griffin. It was a nice episode. It's a Pinkie Pie episode where she starts making pranks with Rainbow Dash. I really like whenever Pinkie Pie gets paired with Rainbow Dash. I tend to enjoy those episodes because they are pranksters and all that. They get up to a lot of nice shenanigans. And honestly, if you would have asked me back when I first watched this episode what I thought about Gilda, I think that good old G would have been classified as a massive B, if you know what I'm saying. But now, now that everything is out of the bag, I'm actually kind of upset that it took them really a long time to put Gilda in any of the seasons again. I think she didn't show up until season 4 or 5 whenever they go to Griffinstone. So, obviously she was a good character. I think she's like the second species to be introduced into My Little Pony besides dragons. Well, actually, I think the first, since, Spike was in the first episode. So she was the first species to be introduced outside of ponies and everything that we've seen before. And I'm really upset. I kind of want to say down it for that fact that, they introduced a really interesting species and only used it for like one episode, and I didn't bring her back until much later. Didn't bring back not only Gilda but the whole species until later. So I would probably rank this a D. It's not overall that much of an interesting episode outside the fact that we got Gilda, and then obviously she's portrayed. Well, she was introduced as a really meanie pants, a massive B. So this episode gets a D. It was good, but since I do like Gilda now, since she obviously got reformed, this episode, the way they introduced her, and the way that they kept her as a bad guy up until she was reformed, this episode gets a D, in my opinion. Alright, episode 6, Ghostbusters. The episode where we get introduced to the great and powerful Trixie. This is actually one of my favorite episodes from season 1. It's a really nice episode. Not only do we get introduced to Trixie, but I think it's a good way to really show how much Twilight evolved as a character overall. Because in this episode, she's training, she's practicing. They do 25 tricks, 25 magic tricks, or just 25 spells, whatever you want to call it. And she doesn't want to be called boastful for that. She only knows those 25 tricks. It's really nice to see that that's where she was at the beginning of the series. She wasn't, at least judging from what they give us to understand from this episode, is that she wasn't that good with magic just yet. She was still learning and all that. And it's great to see that because, in this episode, she's trained those 25 like it's a great achievement. When by the end of the series, she's teleporting left and right and disappearing and appearing things from thin air and all that. It's really nice to see it from that aspect. Obviously, we get Trixie as well, which is one of my favorite secondary characters. It's really nice. Unlike Gilda, which I disliked, Trixie was supposed to be portrayed as dislikable and all that. But, obviously she's arrogant and all that, but I don't know, she seems way more appealing than Gilda did in the beginning. And obviously, thankfully, we did get far more Trixie later on, so it's a good episode overall as sort of a premise-wise, as sort of character introduction-wise, and, a sort of character depth build-up. It's just a really nice episode to, go back and compare this episode and, every single episode after that, and from any other seasons. Just great to see how how far these ponies truly came in this series. This episode is definitely an A tier episode. I don't want to rank it an S tier because while I do I do forgive Trixie's arrogance, it did kind of still bother me a little bit. Even when I just rewatched it, it still was kind of a bit of annoying. So that just slightly holds it back from being an S tier. So yeah, A tier definitely. Episode 7, Dragon Shy. I'm not going to beat around the bush. This episode was extremely boring. As I watched it, I realized it's just as boring as it was 8 years ago when I was first watching this episode. It's not enjoyable at all. Now, don't get me wrong. I know this is all before that Iron Hoof dudes made Fluttershy more, gotta get better self-esteem and all that, assertive. But even then, this episode felt like it just dragged on, and not to be like Rainbow Dash in this episode, and not to dogpile on Fluttershy, but she really does bring it down. This episode is really slow. Like, the whole premise is that there's this dragon that they need to get rid of because it's going to cover Equestria in a cloud of smoke, and Fluttershy is scared, but it's just it's amazing to see how scaredy cat Fluttershy was, and just how awful that whole situation made the episode, because she just dragged it down, and she dragged the episode down, and like literally the whole thing was resolved in the last 2 minutes. Everything else just sort of happens because Fluttershy is too scared to speak up or whatever. Honestly, this is an F tier episode. It's just not that good. It's not that good of an episode for season 1 and like the whole series all around. Like, from what I've seen from so far from season 1, this episode is really weak. It's not enjoyable at all. It's definitely a strong F, and that's all I have to say about it. I did not enjoy it whatsoever. Episode 8, Look Before You Sleep. This episode is really enjoyable. I'm a big fan of whenever Rarity and Applejack get paired up in an episode, so this episode was just an absolute treat. Watching them not get along like at all throughout the slumber party that Twilight is very excited to have. Watching them just diss each other all night long while Twilight is completely oblivious, just going on with her own like imagination of what a good slumber party is, while Applejack and Rarity are like fighting each other. It's just really enjoyable. It's nice. It's a nice simple story. Really enjoy. Down to earth and all that. Something that can pretty much happen to anybody. You have that one friend you're not really all too keen on. Well, not keen on, but you have your differences with, and then like you get along. You go around with them, and you don't exactly get along all too well. Also, that pillow fight they have, it's like one of my top 10 favorite anime fights, so that's always enjoyable. But watching them come together in the end, that's really nice. That's nice, that's sweet, it's wholesome, and obviously one of the better Rarity and Applejack episodes. I think this is a strong B. It's a nice episode, it's really enjoyable. Also one of my favorites from this season, so yeah, I'm definitely going to be rating this a strong B. It's a nice little episode. Alright, Brittle Gossip is one of those episodes that makes me, I like it, but everything surrounding it, everything they sort of, throw at us as information, you can tell they want to build up. It's really irritating because we get introduced to Sakura the zebra, the only zebra in the show, which is really annoying because I always found Sakura like straight off the bat to be really interesting when I first saw this episode. I always wondered, man, they showed off all this stuff, like she mentions those masks in her house from where she lives. Her whole character and all that seemed really interesting, but they never actually did anything with her. They never introduced another zebra, and from what I read, Hasbro didn't want to do it, so that was really annoying. I know I got a lot of bad things to say about this, but I actually enjoyed the episode. I think it's a strong B. Actually, no, it's an A. I like Sakura. That's how much I like her. Despite that they never actually really go anywhere with her, I still like the episode. Unlike Gilda and Trixie, although I think Sakura shows up as, as much as Gilda does, maybe a little bit more. It annoys me because they never really explored her or her species. They never explored zebras. So that's really annoying. At least for Gilda, not necessarily that she shows up more, that they explore her, but at least they explore Griffin's. But unlike Gilda, Sakura gets no backstory whatsoever. She's just sort of there as this potion maker or like enchantress and all that. So that's really annoying. That's all we get. We didn't get any backstory to how she became that, where she's from, and all that. The episode is an A, but what they did or ultimately didn't do with her is what annoys me. And I know this has like little to do with the episode. The episode is really enjoyable. I like the jokes in there. The song, the Enchantress song, is really annoying. Sakura, great character, but I just felt like this was the perfect time to like sort of vent a little bit about this whole Sakura situation. It's a great episode. We got introduced to a great character. Sadly, no build up, but the episode as itself. Keeping in mind, season 1, it was a great episode. One of my favorite episodes from the season. Definitely a strong A. Swarm of the Century. Oh man, had I forgot how much I completely despised this episode. I think this is actually kind of amazing. It's one of those few episodes that I really think of that I absolutely despise. Not only season 1 wise, I think overall series wise, it's one of the worst episodes. All the main 6 are completely dislikable in this episode. Like you got Applejack, you got Rarity, you got Rainbow Dash and Twilight just being mean overall with Pinkie Pie and like not listening to her whatsoever. You got Pinkie Pie, she's trying to handle the situation, but she won't actually say the situation to her friends so that they can actually help her out, not just keep telling her to bust off. You got Fluttershy, who started all of this, not only helping out getting rid of them, but like once they actually get rid of them, turns out she had a whole bunch of them at her house sale and she got absolutely no recourse for it. Everybody's basically being mad and pissed off at Pinkie Pie for not actually helping, even though she's the only one that knows what's going on. I don't know. And on top of that, you got Parasprites, which are like easily one of the most boring, worst antagonists from the series. Mainly because, they got gremlin rules. You don't feed them or else they reproduce and, everything just goes off the rails. I know that I'm being very vocal about this. It's just a bad episode. I do not like it. This is easily an F tier episode. It's annoying. It's not good. So yeah, I dislike everybody in this episode. Like nobody wins in this situation. Everybody's absolutely dislikable. The Parasprites are dislikable antagonists, and thank goodness they never show up again as far as I remember. So yeah, F tier. Goodbye episode. Goodbye Swarm of the Century. It was a pain watching this episode again. Winter wrap up. This episode is an S tier episode, not just season 1 wise. In my opinion, it's one of my favorite episodes overall, for a lot of various reasons. So the premise of this, obviously Twilight wants to fit into Ponyville. She wants to participate in Winter Wrap-Up, which is, clearing up winter to welcome spring, which I think was only covered in this episode. Maybe they reference it in some later episodes, but I don't quite remember. And she doesn't want to use her magic because she wants to do it in the traditional Ponyville way. And obviously she tries to help out with Rarity making nests, and she tries to help out Applejack and all that. And while she doesn't directly cause the problem, obviously she's not good at helping out because she can't use her magic, or she doesn't want to use her magic. The problem isn't directly caused by her, it's just they're not good at organizing. And thankfully she ends up being, the perfect solution for that. Everything works out. It's a nice, wholesome episode. I like it because nobody's really at fault. It's just Ponyville can't get organized. And, despite Twilight thinking that she's the problem because she can't help out, she's actually the perfect solution. The other main reason that I like this episode, and I think this is one of the most amazing episodes, is this song, Winter Wrap Up. There was actually no reason for this song to be as good as it was, despite, for the single fact that back when this premiered and all that, it was just another show, another marketing show. It had no reason for being as good as it was, and yet it was, and I'm so thankful for that. I remember when I first listened to that song, I liked it so much I downloaded it and I had it on my phone on repeat for a couple of days. But then I found Pinkie Pie Swear's sort of remix of the song Winter Wrap Up, which is called Sunshine and Celery Stalks, and oh my goodness, as soon as I found that song, I downloaded it as well, and it's been on my phone for 8 years now, ever since like 2011, since like November, December of 2011. So I really enjoy that song. I really enjoy the remix that came out of it. You know, Pinkie Pie Swear is not only like one of my favorite artists, but he made one of my favorite brony songs ever. So, you know, this episode is an S tier, not only for the episode itself, but for the songs and the remixes and everything that it spawned. It's really good. There's nothing I dislike about this episode whatsoever. It's such an S tier episode in my opinion. Alright, so Call of the Cutie. So this is an episode where we get introduced to just how important cutie marks are, what they signify and all that, in case you hadn't picked up on them in all the previous episodes. You know, cutie marks are basically what mark you, what you're going to do for life, what your special talent and all that is. And of course we get Apple Bloom, who doesn't have a cutie mark, and she obsesses over getting a cutie mark because Diamond Tiara gets her cutie mark and invites Apple Bloom to her quinceañera. And yeah, basically the whole episode is just Apple Bloom trying to get her cutie mark as fast as possible. But then at the end of the episode, we get introduced to Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, I forgot her name, and they form the Cutie Mark Crusaders. So this is obviously way before they get their cutie marks. It's nice to go back, see how young they sounded. Oh my goodness, I totally forgot how squeaky all their voices were back in the day. And, you know, it's a nice episode. You know, it's just, you know, we get introduced to the Cutie Mark Crusaders, what their whole deal is going to be, you know, trying to get their cutie marks, which is still like 3 or 4 seasons away at this point, but, you know, we'll get to that. And yeah, you know, it sets up what they're going to be doing in all their future episodes. This episode gets a strong C in my opinion, you know, for a C for cutie marks, and because, you know, it's an okay episode, and I don't believe there's filler episodes in My Little Pony, but if I had to classify it, this would probably be like a little filler episode, despite, you know, setting up the Cutie Mark Crusaders. It's also a strong C because all throughout the episode, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon, obviously they're not reformed just yet. They're just being a complete bag of shit. Fall weather friends. I have honestly quite the hard time thinking of something to say about this episode, because honestly, outside of setting up the fact that Applejack and Rainbow Dash sort of have this rivalry going on between them all the time, where they're trying to one-up each other because they're like the most athletic out of the main 6. The episode doesn't really do much. I did find the whole Pinkie Pie as the announcer funny. I enjoyed that about the episode. I like how at the end of the race, Twilight beats them. You know, Applejack and Rainbow were so busy trying to one-up each other, trying to, you know, make the other one fall back in the race, that they didn't pay attention, and ultimately, you know, none of them won and Twilight beat them. I think that was pretty nice. And I guess this episode sort of works to set up not only the rivalry between Applejack and Rainbow Dash, but to sort of show us that, you know, outside of like the little groups of ponies, these two are the ones that, like, you know, get along the most. Like I said, I really do enjoy Applejack and Rainbow Dash episodes and Rarity and Applejack episodes. I think those 3 characters are like my favorite when it comes to like pairings and episodes. Like, I think they make the most interesting situations. But as far as rating this episode, I think it's a strong C. Nothing too special, to be honest.